guys, we're back. Another edition of the Roy's Boys podcast. Josh and Anthony with you as always. Anthony, you have a good weekend, buddy?
Yeah, man. I think, we could have used a little bit of Tar Heel basketball sprinkled in there, but outside of the Louisville game, I would have liked to have back-to-back games on a Super Sunday, maybe, instead of having to watch that terrible game from Wake Forest. But guess what? Could be worse. Could be State.
Yeah. At first I thought you forgot all about the Louisville game because you were like, could have used some Carolina basketball.
There's no forgetting about that. No, I'm having withdrawals after one day.
So am I, and that's why I'm glad we turn around and play again tomorrow. We got a lot to do on this podcast, Louisville recap, state preview, and some other fun stuff. We'll go ahead and get to the opening tip, which is brought to you by Rodan and Fields. For all your skincare needs, please call Joey Marlowe at 803-804-0200. And today we have some recruiting news, one that's good and one that's not good. We'll get to the not good part first, and that's five-star guard Anthony Edwards canceled his visit to Carolina. Earlier last week, he had listed the Heels among his final four, so it appears that we are out of the running for his services. You have any initial thoughts on this news that broke over the weekend?
I mean, the overreactions are going to be plenty from the Tar Heel fan base. They do it all the time with recruiting. Of course, it's not something you want to see, but at the same time, we've already got two guys committed to the class. There's a couple other guys that Roy is making a real push for in this class. And, while you look at this as possibly being a bad thing, the other way that you could take this is maybe he knows something that we don't about Cole Anthony and his situation. So, look, I'm not going to overreact to this. I'm assuming that a good portion of the Tar Heel fan base will, because they do whenever we have trouble on the recruiting trail. But, yeah, no, it's a visit that, we were among four teams. Let's be really honest. Were we probably the favorite in the race for him? I don't think so. So, I'm not overly concerned about him not visiting Chapel Hill. But, it's definitely something that pops up on the radar for sure.
Yeah. And the other was that last week Roy offered a big man from the 2020 class, Walker Kessler, offered him a scholarship. This kid's got some, other schools. I know Tennessee, I think Purdue, Michigan State, so some big-time programs, one in his town on their campus. And I thought about it. I was like, okay, well, that would be the year that Garrison's a senior. Yep. Sterling's going to be a senior. We don't know if Bacot's going to be a one-and-done kind of player in next year's class. So this could be the future big man of the Heels. And, he had some positive things to say about the program. And, of course, you got offered by a Hall of Fame head coach who watched you drop. I think he had like 38 and 12 when Roy was there to watch him play. So, big-time game in front of a big-time coach. And, for all we know, we'll follow his recruiting closely. And this might be the next new big man in Chapel Hill. So, any thoughts on the offered scholarship for this kid?
I don't know. It's still really early, of course, for him. You look at it, it's a 2020 guy. And really with basketball in specific, you're pretty much focused on 2019, and that's really it. You'll get, some focus towards the 2020 class, but basketball is really a year-by-year thing because of the one-and-done factor. So you got to kind of adjust your recruiting to the guys that end up leaving on you. When I look at it, we've had a lot of concerns from the fan base and really ourselves on this podcast about the depth at the forward position. So, a guy that's 7 foot as well, which is more like what we are used to seeing at our center position, which is a big guy that's around 6'11" or taller. It's something that's significant. It's a guy to keep on the radar. Maybe if, you're a Tar Heel fan, go ahead and check out, see what he's got, and see if maybe you think that he would fit what we've got here. Clearly, Roy does. So, and you mentioned it, 35 or 38 and 12. That's pretty good. That's exactly what you would hope for from a guy at that level, especially with, the game. You think that the college and pro games have gone to three-point shooting as the only option. That's high school. High school, right. They live and die by three-point shooting. So that's awesome to see a big man be as successful as he was, especially with Roy in the house. So, yeah, I guess one of those other things that, you kind of put him on the radar. But at this point, look, I don't think you're going to say, well, we either land him or Roy's a terrible recruiter. This is just one where we entered the race early.
Right. We're going to move on, talk about the Louisville game on Saturday. A 79-69 road win for the Heels. Fifth straight, moved them to 7-1 in the ACC, which puts them they're a half a game behind Virginia, who's played one more game than us, and we're tied with Duke. So, the last three winners of the conference still right there, and really just a dominant effort by this team on the glass. Out-rebounded Louisville 49-32, and we talked in the preview, and I pretty much said it, whichever team out-rebounds the other is going to win. Yeah. That's kind of how this, the game just felt like it was going to go. I was shocked at the amount of rebounding disparity because Louisville does have some size inside that we struggled with the first game, but it was just one of those. And I think a lot of it was we were so bad against Georgia Tech, it was reinforced in all the practices leading up into the game, and we just took it to them. And that really is why we were able to overcome only a 42% shooting day and an even worse 25% from three. And there was a lot of questions about this team. Well, can they win if they can't shoot? Well, they went on the road in a hostile environment and won a game where they didn't shoot the ball very well.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, did you realize that we had lost that first game? I mean, they only said that storyline about 7 or 8 times during the first half and then circled back around to it in the second half. But, I mean, if you just look at the stats, let's say that you didn't watch this game at all, and if you just look at the stats, the only stat that Carolina really dominated in was the rebounding. And you mentioned it. That was the difference in the game. I thought also, for the most part, Carolina was able to maintain their tempo just a little bit as opposed to in the game against them earlier in the year. And I felt like even maybe a little bit at times against Georgia Tech's tempo they were able to take over the tempo a little bit and slow the game down. That didn't happen in this game. Carolina did exactly what they had to do. And, I felt like for the most part, while I didn't think this was an overwhelmingly great performance, I also didn't think it was that bad of a performance from this team at all, especially on the road in the Yum Center, which we've known over the past couple of years has become a tough environment. And it's against a team that was, according to Joe Lunardi, entering the game was a 3 seed. This team is really playing well. Chris Mack has this team playing at a different level. And, the difference was Enoch was non-existent. He did nothing. And that is just great game planning by Carolina. Look, I have no problem with saying, hey, we're just there to clean glass and run the ball down the court. Yeah. And that's exactly what they did in order to score the points that they needed to. And 79 is not going to blow anyone away, but I'll take it. Great performance from the guys that we needed to step up when we needed them to step up.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Luke May had a bounce-back game like I figured he would. 20 points. Was only 7 of 18 from the field, but was 5 of 7 from the foul line, and gave us, I think it was 11 rebounds. And Cam Johnson, steady as always, 19 and 10, really helped carry the offense. Kobe White had one of his worst shooting days of the year, 3 of 14, didn't hit a 3, but when you get the kind of production from May that you didn't get it against Georgia Tech, and Cam is just being Cam, this team can survive without Kobe being dominant scoring because he didn't turn the ball over. We only turned the ball over as a team 10 times, which is kind of our magic number.
That's our lowest number, I think, of the year, right? It's got to be that.
I believe it's in conference play at least.
Yeah, because any other game that I can remember, 11 was the lowest.
Yeah, so. And I think that's a magic number for this team because we are going to turn it over here and there because we play at a faster tempo than more other teams in the country. But if they can start limiting the turnovers in the half court, it's going to make this team more dangerous because they're starting to get a little bit more effective in the half court. The numbers didn't show it with the 42% and the 25% from 3, but they also got good looks. They just got to make them. But just really a solid bounce back win. And it was one of those games that, like I told you, and I had a feeling going in, we're not losing. It's just, whenever we have those kind of games where one team beats us the first time, you're not going to beat Roy Williams back-to-back times in the same year. And I felt that in my heart and was really just proud of the guys and the effort to respond and to handle the adversity and the environment there really well. I will have to say, that little bell thing they had going on in there for the Muhammad Ali celebration, that thing got annoying.
Not a fan of that? How about the fact that Chris Spatola and I don't even remember the play-by-play guy's name. They had moments during the broadcast where they would pan to them and they would pretend to punch each other throughout the broadcast. And then one point, the Cardinal mascot came up and pretended to beat him up.
That's ESPN just trying way too hard to be cool.
Oh, is that worse? Is that worse than the Witch Williams, the one that they did during the Virginia Tech game?
That might be. But is there anything else you want to touch on from this Louisville game before we move on to the state preview?
I mean, I'm looking at the box score right now. First of all, one of the guys that I think the box score won't do justice for, but that really had a good game was Kenny Williams. He only shot 3 of 9, but he had 2 clutch threes when we needed them. And I thought overall really played pretty well defensively. And then also Garrison Brooks had 12 points. So look, I mean, the starting lineup did exactly what they needed to do. The bench was a little thin. And I mean, one of the big things, I mean, again, he's not going to jump off the stat sheet for you, but Brandon Robinson, he cannot be understated at this point. Just the how much he has grown so far from last year until this year. And, I mean, he played 19 minutes the other day, which now, I thought maybe Playtech would end up seeing a little more time. I think they've pretty much just said, look, we're making sure that Brandon Robinson's going to get more minutes. And I think in 19 minutes, he was very effective. He was very active defensively. So you got to hand it to him. He's really stepped up. And, if Carolina's going to continue this in conference play, especially with how tough the schedule is going to get and with the uncertainty around Leakey's injury, he's going to have to continue to play as well as he's been playing so far this season.
Yeah, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find another coach in the country that is doing what Roy has done with the talent that Brandon Robinson, because he doesn't have he's not a great shooter, he's not a great defender, he's not a great ball handler, he's not a good rebounder. He just does a little bit.
So what does he do well?
He just does it like here and there.
Right.
Know, but
his shot is coming along,
yes,
though. He hit one the other day. Yeah, definitely.
It's a lot more pure. The form has improved since he got on campus as a freshman, but I don't think Kay, Calipari, and Izzo herself would make this kid or do what they've done with Brandon Robinson. It just shows the kind of coaching we have at Chapel Hill, that a kid that on a freshman team that won a national championship without a role to now as a junior is a vital part, especially with 2 guys hurt and Sterling Manley and Leaky Black. He has a big role, and he's out there producing every night. Just one of my favorite guys on social media, and just really happy to see him being successful on the court, and just going to look forward to continuing to him to grow as a player and as a student at Carolina. We'll transition into the state preview. But first, we're going to clown NC State before we get into the nitty gritty.
Do we have to? I think they just did that themselves.
I mean, 24 points in the modern game of basketball. There's teams that score that. I mean, Golden State scores that in 4 minutes. So you're telling me you can't do better than 24 in 40 minutes? And they were even at home. They weren't even the Castle's a hard place to go play. You did it in your own building. I mean, that's like they were taking hints from the Hurricanes, trying to put the puck in the net because they could put the ball in the ocean.
They were terrible. And I want to remind people that they scored 24 points against Virginia Tech, Virginia.
We scored 103.
We remember when we were talking before the Virginia Tech game, and we said pretty much our game plan in this game is just to outscore them, because Virginia Tech is not a good defensive team. They're not. And pretty much NC State, I don't know what happened. They should have. I'm going to be real honest. I thought they were going to win the game coming in because Justin Robinson was out of the lineup. Game was at home. I thought, okay, this is setting up for State to win. Okay, I mean, we're Tar Heel fans, so we're not going to applaud for State to win. But,
right.
That was probably the thinking of a lot of people. And, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, if you look at the stats from Virginia Tech, they were terrible.
Either.
They were awful.
Yeah.
But you shot 16.7% from the field. I'm going to be really honest with you. I could probably shoot better than that myself.
That was my grade average in Spanish in community college, by the way.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
I'm proud of that too. So
no bueno. There you go.
But yeah, so now that we've clowned them,
oof.
Carolina won the first matchup 90-82. They owned the backboards. I think we out rebounded them 51-32, and that was able to negate the 23 turnovers we committed in that game. I do think, and I wrote about this today, that Kobe White, since that game has matured as a point guard in Roy Williams' system, and you're starting to see that with him being better decisions in the fast break and in the half court. But we got to be, prepared for that kind of pressure again. And really got to bring that same rebounding effort. They play 4 guards, so they're smaller inside.
Yep.
And so this is a really good game to put the ball inside to Luke May, because this is the one time he's going to have the favorable matchup even inside. Not even have to get on the perimeter to feel more comfortable. You can give the ball to him on the block, and he can go to work. And also get Garrison some touches, because he's proven, hey, he can do something here and there. You can't run all your offense through him. But, man, if I'm Carolina, that ball is going to the paint every single time. While I think we can beat them out shooting them because they can only shoot 16.7%, I don't want to try doing that again.
Let's just say they are not going to shoot that bad again.
Yeah,
That's
is probably going to be a game where they're going to make the shots that you can't even complain as a fan. You just go, okay, nothing we
it's
can
a
do.
rivalry game. It happens all the time.
And one of the big guys that killed us in Raleigh was Braxton Beverly. Had his best game in Chapel Hill or for NC State in that game, and then he had the heroic shot against Clemson a couple weeks ago to complete their comeback. So. Outside of, Saturday, he's playing really well. Torin Dorn leads them in scoring and rebounding. I know he's a state guy, one of my favorite guys in this conference to watch, because he just plays.
He plays the 4 position. Like you wrote it down right here in our beautiful. We have these again, folks. I'm blown away. I'm proud of this kid. He's actually got prep sheets 2 weeks in a row. This is stunning. But they rebound at. They average 39.2 a game, and you mentioned it. They play 4 guards. Because if you think that Torin Dorn is going to play forward at the next level if he gets there, you're crazy. The kid's like, what, 6'4"?
Unless he plays for the Warriors.
That's a good point. He'd be playing the 5 at that point. But, no, I mean, he's just, he's a hard worker. That's pretty much what their whole team is. They're blue-collar type players. And so, if you're Carolina, the biggest thing about Beverly that Carolina's got to take away. There were some offensive rebounds that allowed him to get second chance baskets. That was the biggest thing against them the first time. You cannot let those happen. Like they had, you mentioned it early in the season. We had the moments where we just went dead. And all of a sudden, State would put together an 8-10-0 run in 2 minutes because we turned the ball over a lot and we weren't rebounding on the offensive end, and it would give Beverly one of those second chance threes. I mean, that's the thing that you got to avoid in this game. Don't let that happen again. And remember, State won here last year in Chapel Hill.
Right.
So if anybody thinks, they're coming to Chapel Hill, it's an automatic victory. Well, remember, we said the same thing against Louisville. And how did that turn out? So You've always got to be careful. But I agree with you. Put the ball inside, because you got the smaller Dorn who's going to be going up against Luke May. I don't really think he's going to be able to handle his own in there. And then remember, Wyatt Walker, the center for NC State, he's had foul problems all year. He's not one of the smarter players when it comes to keeping himself on the floor. And the thing about them is they're already thin. Now they're even thinner because who knows what Markel Johnson, what his health is. Because one game he looks fine. The next game he's limping off the floor, with an injury and ends up having to sit on the bench. I mean, Markel Johnson, let's be honest, if he was playing as much as he should be, then he would probably be leading that team in scoring. I would think, because he's their best player, I believe. Best scorer, at least. But so, I think other than that, I mean, the game plan is really just, we talked about it. Mine is defense into offense and rebound. And yours is control tempo.
Yeah, I mean.
There you go.
I hate sounding repetitive, but when we play the way we're supposed to play, there's not a team in the country we can't beat or play with.
It'll be different for the Duke game because you are going to have to make adjustments. Even if you play the way you want to play, Duke is going to make adjustments, and this year they can play the way that we want to play. So we'll see. That'll be a little bit different, but at this rate, I mean, look, you just look at the size. If you go inside and, I mean, look, if you're going to get those open three-point shots, you've got to put the basketball inside first. That is the one thing that that just frustrates me to my core about this team. Early in first halves, they always want to start by jump shooting and trying to find their stride. It's like put the ball inside and let that stride come to you. So it'll be interesting to see if maybe that's an adjustment that Roy Williams makes in this game.
So who do you think wins?
Oh, I think it's Carolina just because, at this point, State, if they lost 3 out of 4, this is a team that right now is just looking like kind of what we thought they would be. A team that can give some people trouble like they did against Virginia, but ultimately a team that is just too small inside, doesn't have enough depth, and with Markel Johnson having injury problems, really just isn't in that group that you would think would be able to compete with the rest of the top competitors in the ACC. I think Carolina wins, but again, if anybody thinks that this is going to be a blowout, I don't see it. This is not going to be 107-56 in the Smith Center. That's not happening. So, but ultimately, I think they pull out the victory. I just hate that, of course, this has to come after the game against Louisville and after they played Virginia Tech and had their worst shooting day in modern ACC basketball.
Yeah, I mean, I do have some concerns about that as well. Carolina's won 5 in a row. It's hard to do that in this conference, and to keep pushing that. And so at some point they're going to lose again, and you, like you said, the State performance the game before, you always hate because it always seems that a team has a bad shooting game before they play us, especially in our building, and they're going to be ready to go. I'm with you. I think State's competitive. I think Keats is going to be one of those coaches that, kind of like Mike Bray, is just going to find a way to give this team problems because he's just a really good coach and he's got some really good players there. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I think Carolina wins. They're at home. They lost at home last year in this game, so for the seniors, they don't want to go out that way, losing another home game to State. And this keeps them on the horse with Duke and Virginia, 2 teams they play in the next 2 weeks for first place in the ACC potentially. And, we're at that point in the season. This is why conference play gets so fun when you hit February. Every game now has implications. One way or another for Carolina, there's something on the line. You got State this week, and then you got another game against Miami. Those are home games. You got to protect home floor because if not, then all the road wins mean nothing. So it's just fun. We got to be ready for the challenge. I think Carolina does pull out the win, and I think Kobe White's kind of a bounce-back game because he was so bad against Louisville on Saturday. I think he'll be more composed tomorrow night, take better shots, and really guide this team on offense to what's going to be a shootout victory, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. This year in the ACC is just kind of nuts. Like, people will say, well, okay, so what if you drop one game? The problem is you've got Virginia in first place in the division at 8-1. Then Carolina and Duke are behind them, a half a game behind them, at 7-1. Then you drop back to Louisville and Syracuse as well as Virginia Tech, all one game back at 7-2. But after that, that's where the drop-off starts, and you get to Florida State, who is in that next position. That's seventh position. Yeah. Horrible accounting. 7th position in the ACC right now. Teams 4-4 in conference.
Right.
So there's a huge rift in between these two teams. There's not a team that's 5-4. There's not even a team that's 6-3. In other years, there was that balance. This year, there are clear tiers in the ACC. So if you're Carolina, you've got to keep winning in order to keep pace, or else, you could end up, you lose this game, you could end up with a 6 seed in the ACC tournament. That's how close everything is right now. So, it's a little bit weird, but it's one of those years in the ACC that just makes it so exciting.
Right. I guess we'll go ahead and move on to our last segment of today's podcast.
Yeah, that would be the buzzer beater segment of the podcast. And the buzzer beater segment of the podcast is presented by Hustle Hands. It's a company owned locally in the Charlotte area by Chad Boucher, a fellow Tar Heel fan. And right now they got some sales going on online, guys. Check that out. They got some great stuff that's going on sale for this week only. So go to hustlehands.com/shop to make sure you don't miss out on all the great deals. So, buddy, what do we have for this week's buzzer beater?
To start off, Carolina moved up to 8th in the AP Top 25 from 9th. My little brother was talking to me on Saturday. He's like, Bubs, I think we can move into the top 5 if we get some more upsets. And I just kind of told him that, look, in college basketball, the ranking doesn't matter. I'm more worried about where we are in the ACC.
I don't think I want to be in the top 5 at this point. The top of the AP polls so far this season haven't been good for a lot of those teams that get up there.
And Carolina's played 3 of the top 6 teams in that that are in front of them, and they're about to play a 4th when they play Virginia next Monday. So, but yeah, we moved up to another spot in the top 25. Moving on from that, the Lady Tar Heels ended NC State's undefeated season yesterday with a 64-51 win. That's 2 wins over the top 7 teams in the women's college sport in the last week. For a team that's 14-9, they've seemed to play their best against top-tier competition and really starting to boost their resume for tournament time on the women's side. And then lastly, just wanted to ask you your thoughts on the Super Bowl, and then as we look forward, as we get ready to gear up towards March, what you're going to be keeping on your eye for college basketball season.
I'll say this much. I don't think that March Madness will produce a game that will be that bad during the tournament. So I think that was pretty much 2 teams that didn't get the memo that there was offense to be played in that game, kind of like State. So, but I mean, no, I'm happy that now the focus turns towards March, because this year, I mean, I think everybody is just so sold on Duke as the national champion. And, they are young, and we've seen before that college basketball is one of those sports where I think everybody else really, every other sport, people really want to say, well, how much does experience really matter? Because we've seen teams that are younger find ways to win. In college basketball, the last few seasons, if you don't have experience, you're not gonna be able to hang on for 6 games. It just doesn't happen. I mean, look at the last 3 national champions, Villanova twice and us. Both of them were or all 3, I guess, were all very senior laden.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see it, and I'm excited. You know us. I mean, when it comes to March, man, this is our time of the year. This is where we get excited, and this podcast is going to be fantastic for the next couple of months. And when we do the March Madness edition of the podcast, oh man, just write it down, because we might. I mean, clearly, you probably know who we're going to pick as our champion at this point. We've rounded into form nicely for us to pick us.
But yeah, I thought the Super Bowl was. It's entertaining because this is a Super Bowl, even though it was a 13-3 dud. It was good to see defense kind of take the stage again as an era where it's all about offense. And
Tony Bennett loved it.
Yeah, everyone wants to see 50-40. I think Brady cemented his legacy now as the greatest quarterback of all time. He's 6-3 in Super Bowls, and now the new argument is he a better athlete than Michael Jordan? We're not going to debate that here,
no.
but that's now the new argument. And as we look towards March, I mean, just the best time in sports when you have championship week and you got the small schools on ESPN, and the madness starts heating up. And we've already seen some crazy stuff in conference play with buzzer beaters and big comebacks and State's 7-point deficit in 20 seconds.
A lot of massive upsets so far this year, especially towards the top of the country.
And so March Madness, as it is always, it's going to be a crapshoot. It's going to be which team can play the best 6 straight games and which team's the healthiest and all that good stuff. And you know me. It's my favorite thing in sports, and just going to enjoy conference play and get geared up for March Madness. And hopefully Carolina's playing well, and we got a chance to make another Final Four as they go to Minneapolis this year for that. Is there anything else you want to contribute to the podcast today?
No, I think we're good, man.
All right, man. I want to encourage you guys to subscribe to this podcast through iTunes, Spotify, Spreaker, and I believe we are now on iHeartRadio.
We have been added as of this weekend. So, yeah, that's some great news there. Going to try to get on TuneIn, as well as I think radio.com has where we can submit as well. So I think we're going to try to get the stuff on there as well. But, it's starting to take off.
Yeah, and check it out on those sites. Check out the blog. Find that on Facebook, Twitter, and Medium. Same with the sister Heel Tough blog, as well as he'll be writing with signing day coming up Wednesday for Carolina football. I want to thank you guys for listening. Go Tar Heels.